also.
Okay,
You can start.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. This is a course module that is in ECD related course. It's reading module. So the course actually looks at reading in preschool. So it's quite a comprehensive course module, very interesting course module, and I know that you're going to really enjoy it. The course module itself is divided into 3 units. We've got the first unit that just looks at the nature of reading, the factors of reading, characteristics of reading. The next 2 units basically look at theories of child development, but we are really going to then try and link it back to reading itself. So the theories that we are going to mainly focus on in this particular unit, in this particular module, course module of reading for preschools, it's behaviorist theory, social learning theory, and also brain development theories, and any other current updated theories that we're going to look at that might come up, so that we are relevant and current and modern with the strategies that have been used in this particular section. The other last unit just basically looks at the practicality of how to teach reading in nursery settings. The interventions, there are quite a number of reading programs that are out there, and then also look at the process of reading, the stages of reading, and also then we'll critically evaluate some of these strategies, some of these interventions, and then try and practice them and put them into from theory to practice, and try to apply these particular theories within our modern day reading with children. So that's the summary, a brief summary of this particular module. It's for year ones. So hopefully you'll find it very interesting. So we're going to start off with the first unit, okay? So the first unit looks at reading in general, nature of reading. So I'll just put the topic on the board, and that's what you're supposed to do anyway. When you're working with children, they need to know what it is that you're doing with them. There is no way that you can just come in and work with a child and the child has no idea of what they're doing. So need to indicate the topic. What is it that you're doing? This is unit 1, the first unit. Today is the 24th of January. Okay? You do also need to indicate the date itself. Okay? Yeah. Yes. What is reading? Maybe let me start it off with that. Okay. What is reading? Do you have an idea? Do you have an idea of what reading is? It's an interactive process, okay? Yeah. What do we mean by interactive process? You are either engaging with yourself or with a book, okay? So you've got something in front of you. It might be a book, it might be a picture, it might be a sign that is on the door. So there is some interaction. You are actually engaging with something. So it's a person engaging with either some material that you have in front of you. Okay? Yes. That's one particular example. Okay? Yeah. The next one is you might be engaging with another person, okay? Because reading is broad. It's very broad. It's very dimensional. It is very dynamic, okay? Because there are different types of reading materials that are out there. Okay, so we've got storytelling itself as well. Okay, so when there's storytelling, you are telling someone a story, okay? There is no material in between. There is no book. There is no textbook. It is just me telling a story, me narrating what I've done over the weekend. Or for myself, I might just tell you what happened, an interesting event that happened. Maybe a long time ago, I might tell you a story that I was told by my own grandmother long time ago. Okay? So that's storytelling. Those are folk tales. It's still part of reading. Okay? I might bring in a newspaper. Okay? I might bring in a newspaper and then read the newspaper to you. Okay? Yeah. Or I might watch the news. Okay? And then I might come back and tell you, did you hear that this is what is happening in Ukraine? Did you hear this is what is happening in Russia? Or did you hear this is what is happening in Malawi? Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yes. So when we say reading is interactive, there is a process that is going on. Okay?
Yeah.
Either there's a person reading a resource and material that is in front of them, or either there is also listening as well. Okay? So for example, it might be an audio. Okay?
Yeah.
This is now, I'm talking about modern technology that has moved on with reading. So you have e-books, electronic books, audio books. So instead of reading it yourself, it's on your phone, you can download it from your phone, you can download it on your laptop, and then you can have your earphones plugged in, and then you can actually listen.
Yeah.
Yes. And then afterwards, you'll be able to summarize, okay, I've heard this interesting story, I've heard this book, I've listened to this book. This book is about A, B, C, D. Okay?
Yeah.
So, yes, what does reading entail? Reading entails listening. It now depends on what type of format of resource you've got. Okay? So, in listening, it would be e-books. Sometimes they can be reading form, where you can read it up. Okay? Audio books. Audio books. Okay?
Yeah.
It includes reading itself. Okay? Hand and eye coordination. You are taking a book, okay, putting it in your hand, and then reading it using your eyes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's reading. It involves hand and eye coordination. This is now the physical aspect of the process of reading. Okay?
Yeah.
For you to be able to read it, you have to take the book from somewhere and bring it towards you and be able to have it at eye level and be able to read it. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yes. That's another process. Okay?
Yeah.
Then there is writing as well. Okay? When you read, for example, you are going to, okay, let's look at a bit older aged children. They're about, okay, 3-year-old, 2-year-olds are supposed to read. I've had children be able to read at 2 years, 1 year. Yes, I have had. So, yeah, 1 year and a half, yes, you can have the child being able to read. Especially if you have started them very young, before they were born. In fact, the reading process should start when the child is in the mother's womb. Okay? So it stimulates intelligence, it enhances intelligence. Okay? It actually enables the child and the mother to bond well, way before the child is born. Okay? So the reading should actually start even in the womb. Okay? So when I'm talking about writing itself, I am talking about with older children. Okay? Because with older children, you read a story, you might read a story to them, then you might ask them a few questions, and they'll have to answer in writing. Okay?
Yeah.
Reading comprehension. You have it in standard 1, standard 2, right up to primary school, right up to, in fact, right up to high school. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you have a story, a child will read a story, then there are questions, and then the child will answer these questions. So there's some form of writing that is involved within reading. We have speaking as well. Okay? When you read a story to a learner, okay, to a child, or a child reads the story themselves, okay, you could ask them questions. These are verbal questions. So, okay, maybe the story is about a lion and a monkey. So, who are the characters in the story? Lion and monkey. So, when we ask these questions to children, then they're able to answer back. That's speaking. Then they're checking whether they're fluent, even when they read, because there's different types of reading. There's reading aloud. And that should also be done also. You should read aloud to children. The whole point of reading aloud is to model good reading practice, to encourage proper pronunciation, fluency, intonation, okay? So when do you pitch your voice? When do you raise your voice? When do you lower your voice? You raise your voice when there are verbs, action words, to make the children get engaged and interested in the story. So there is some process, some methods that you're supposed to use when you're actually reading to children in order to captivate them, in order to maintain their interest in the story, in order for them to become part of the story so that they can relate to the story. That's the interaction engagement that we are talking about. That's why you find that when someone is given a book and they read the story, tears will come rolling down. Yes. They become sad or they become happy. That means that that story has interacted with them. That story has had an emotional impact on them. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes. And the fact that someone can remember it for years down the line, that means that that story had an impact and an influence on them. So reading, never underestimate the power of reading, because reading is it's an important aspect in anyone's life, not only in children's lives, but in our own personal lives. Because from reading, we're able to be empathetic, we are able to put ourselves in other people's shoes, we learn to be sympathetic. So from reading, we learn to be emotionally responsive individuals. Are you understanding? We're able to form morals, okay? We're able to have opinions of our morals. We're able to establish what is right and what is wrong, okay? So we're able to become critical thinkers. Okay, this story, I have read it. I didn't like the ending of it. Or I didn't like the beginning. I think maybe the main character, who we usually refer to as the protagonist, might have solved this particular problem in a particular manner. Are you understanding? Yes. So you are critically thinking on your own. It might be in a class discussion with the teacher or the children, but the children themselves can do silent reading and be able to think about questions, ask themselves questions while they're reading. Okay, so it's an interactive process, it's an engaging process that can be seen or unseen depending on the type of reading that you're doing. Because there's reading silently, there's reading loudly, there is then different types of reading activities. So you are reading in either groups or individuals or as a class, because you can get the whole class, the whole group of learners or the whole group of children. There are 4, 5, 10. You can simply say to them, okay, everyone has got a book in front of them. Let's all read at the same time. Okay?
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you are checking whether the child is able to articulate. When we articulate, able to say the words properly. Okay? So in other words, what you're simply then saying is that if there is a word in, you're ensuring and making sure that that word has been pronounced properly. Okay? Area. There is an R, there's an A. Okay? So area. Okay? If a child says area, have they pronounced the word properly?
No.
No. So in reading, you are teaching children to be able to say the words properly, to be able to pronounce the words according to the government's standard of English that we follow. And we follow the British type of English. We're colonized by the British. Yes, that is what we follow. So the pronunciation should be almost at that level. We are not saying that dialect should be like that. It should be British, okay? But at least we should be able to pronounce in that manner. In other countries, in other schools, they might have American English, so you assume that the child will be able to speak English in an American manner. And even with the writing, when we talk of reading and writing, color, if I write color like this, that means that this is British. I'm actually following the British Standard of English. Okay?
Yeah.
If I then write it in this manner, are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Yes, this is American. So immediately, when I get a passage, okay, that has got color as C-O-L-O-R, I immediately will assume that this is an American writer.
English.
It's an English writer, but the English writer is coming from America.
Yeah.
Have you understood the point?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's English.
Yeah.
The story has been written in English, but the fact that the word color is written as C-O-L-O-U-R, that means that the person who's written it is British or was colonized by the British, or has got an inherited or an inheritance of colonization of Britishness in them. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yes. Or it might be neither. It might be just be someone who is French, but has decided to write in English and has chosen to use the British type of writing. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
You've understood those?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay? And sometimes you might find that Africans might also write in English, but would choose to write Shona words, Shona words, Chishewa words in the English writing. Okay?
Yeah.
I might say, hello, in the writing. Okay, hello, Murwangi. But you'll be able to identify that hello is English, but this author might not even be Malawian, but might have lived in Malawi, but might have acquired some of these words and has decided to put them in their writing, in their stories. Okay? But the first assumption is to assume that the person is Malawian, because that word is Malawian. So they are Malawian English. Okay? Okay, because we do have people who speak two languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bilingual. Okay. So you have understood what reading is. Okay. And so reading is also an interactive, what we call integrated skill. Okay?
So should we go there?
Yes, please make notes. Okay?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to set up a WhatsApp group. Very soon, I don't have my phone, but I'll set up a WhatsApp group when I have my phone, and then I'll put all the other study materials there. Okay?
Yeah.
So when we talk of interactive skills, it's the simple process that I've explained. When we are looking at reading involves reading itself, the skill of reading, the skill of listening, the skill of writing, and the skill of speaking. That's why it is called, then we call it, it's an interactive skill. Okay. It's not content-based. We are not teaching. It's not only content-based. In fact, it's mainly skill-based. You are teaching someone how to read. And the books are vast. Millions and millions of books have been written. So it can never be content-based only. Content-based is when it's knowledge-based. It's when you then ask about information in the story. Okay? You read about the Lion King. There was a lion and a mouse, and the mouse was arguing with the lion and about who had dug the well, and then they really concluded that it was nobody, it was someone mysterious that they had not seen. Okay, that's a story. I've just given you a short story, okay? Yes, okay? So, when you then ask questions, what was the argument about? It was about who had dug the well and whose well it belonged to, okay? Speaking, I've asked the question. You are now listening, you've listened to the question, you are now answering with speaking. When I then ask you to write the answer, it's writing. So it is an integrated skill. It includes all these skills. And it comes from the subject of English. It's an English language subject. In ECD, we call it literacy. Okay, we don't say in ECD, we only refer to it when we now get to standard 1, when we get to primary as English. But before that, when it is in nurseries, when it is in creche settings, it is referred to as literacy. Okay? You understand it? And with literacy, what are we teaching them? Communication, speaking, and listening, and a bit of reading. Writing, not so much. Okay? Not so much of writing, because it then depends. It then depends at what age group they are. Okay? So, for example, you would not really typically expect a 6-month-old baby to be able to write. Are you understanding? Maybe scribbling might start when they are 9 months, if they can hold a pencil. It depends. It also then depends with how interactive are you with the child. How much do you promote reading? Have you ever given them a pen to hold? Have you ever given the child a paper to scribble on? Are you understanding? Yes. Have you ever gone and they sat on sand and then you gave them a stick and they were drawing? Or did they, with their siblings, with their brothers and sisters, or their friends, or their neighbors next door, did they sit on a pile of sand and did they find sticks and did they draw by themselves? Are you understanding? Yes. So that's scribbling. Anything that's to do with I will dot. It's still a process of writing. Even if a child does that, it's still a process of writing, because it is shaping of letters, because writing comes from the shaping of letters. Reading comes from the sounding of letters. Are you understanding? Yeah. It is very complex process. So reading is complex process. Okay? It is multifaceted. I'm now using academic words which you're supposed to use. Okay? So it's a complex process. It's multifaceted. That means that it includes a number of processes. Yes, skills in it. Okay? Okay. And integrated. And it's a skill. Okay? Yeah. Which can be done by an individual or as a group, or in pairs, or as a class. And it involves, sometimes some people say it involves reading aloud. Okay? Reading silently. These are the two main methods. Okay? So you need to know these two. Reading aloud. You can read aloud, bring a book in, ask a learner to read aloud to the whole class. Or you yourself can read aloud to the learners. Or the learners in pairs can read to each other. In groups can read aloud to each other. Or you can simply ask a learner if they have a book, if there are enough books. Or if not, there are so many ways that you can improvise. There's so many ways that you can look at it and ensure that reading silently is done. So reading silently means that we are not hearing words come out. Yes. Okay? And this is quite good practice when they're in public or in exam settings. You don't want them to make noise. So they need to practice both. And you find that it's quite very interesting that sometimes you will find that there are some adults who cannot actually read silently because they've not been trained to. They were not taught how to. So you find an adult reading loudly. Even in public, on public transport, they're reading loudly. Okay? They're not reading silently. They don't know how to read silently. So you have to teach. So both these skills have to be taught. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yes. So let's just do a midway review of what we have covered so far. We have looked at what reading is. We said reading is an interactive process. It is a skill that also includes you acquiring information and knowledge about what you've read. We've also said that it involves reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Okay. Then we have said that it's an integrated skill because it includes those 4 skills. It is found from the English language subject, But we have said that when it is for younger children, we refer to it as literacy. And when you are looking at reading within that particular younger age group, not from about 5, you are looking at mainly promoting and encouraging speaking skills, listening skills, reading. Writing will develop, will be encouraged, maybe with 2, 3, 4-year-olds, depending with then their ability. Okay, so that's our mid review of what we've done so far. So moving on, let's look at factors that affect reading. Okay, what are factors that affect reading? Do you have an idea? Any suggestions? What might affect a child's reading? Capability of reading?
Maybe environment.
Sorry, environment?
Yeah.
Can you be more specific? When we talk of environment, what do we mean?
No, things that surround us. So
Sorry?
things that surround us.
Yes, okay, so factors that affect reading. So you said, sorry. I hope it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have said environment.
Yeah.
The environment. Can you be specific? We've got internal and external environments. Okay? Okay. Let's start off with, so with the main areas that affect reading, we have said it's the environment. And we have said, okay, there's external and internal environment. Okay? Any more other examples? Let's look at external, outside the child.
Yeah.
These are factors or aspects that affect the child, that has nothing to do with the child. That's external.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
The child is just sitting here. External is something that is being brought to them out of the child's makeup. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
So what might that be? External factors. If I can just branch it off. Home environment. The child is born within a family. They don't pick the family. You don't ask, I want to be born in that family, or I want to be born in that family, or I want to be born in the Jones family, or I want to be born in the Chifundo family. No.
Yeah.
You just you just accept the family that you're given. Yes. So the child has got no say about whether the family is coming from a rich or poor family, poor background. That's what we're talking about, home. The home, okay? So the home will also involve the parents, okay?
Yeah.
The social status of the parents. So if the parents are rich, what type of a child do you think you would have in terms of reading? What type of a child would you have? If the parents are rich, if the child is coming from a rich family, okay, what type of reading abilities or competence do you think a child will have? Do you think they're going to be a good reader? A bad reader?
I think a good reader.
A good reader. You'll assume that they're going to be a good reader. Yeah. What makes you think that they are going to be a good reader?
Maybe his parents are able to buy some books.
Yes. So financial status of the parents. The parents being able to financially provide for that child. To be able to buy books. That means if the parents can buy books, they've got money for books. That means that the child is going to be exposed to loads of books, loads of reading. They're going to read. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes. But is that always the case? No. There are some parents who are rich, who've got the finances, but will not think that buying for a child to read is their duty. They think that it's teachers, the schools, they are paying fees, expensive fees at schools that are very expensive. So it is the school's duty to buy the children, or his or her children, the books. They've paid fees, that's enough for them. Okay?
Yeah.
So you could have parents with an attitude. They're rich, they can afford the books, but their attitude towards buying storybooks, maybe they didn't grow up in that environment. Maybe they became rich, they made themselves rich because they're self-made millionaires, okay? Very few are inherit anyway. Most people who are self-made millionaires have made their own money. That's research, it's there, okay? So they might, and they come from all different backgrounds. Rich, poor, okay? From working, from business, okay? They're varied, and most of them come from working. The self-made millionaires, they come from working. Very few come from business. That was the shock from the research that I read, okay? They just have diversified, okay? So, if the parent is rich, we are assuming that the child will have books, more books, and the more books they're exposed to, the more they're going to likely to read. But we said it's not always the case. The parents might have a very negative attitude towards reading, might be rich, but might not have gone to school. They dropped out of school, they had to work hard, set up their own business, or were just lucky, went into a company and were promoted and had money and were able to invest, okay?
Yeah.
So they don't see the importance of reading. When it's time, please let me know. I do speak for 2-3 hours.
20%.
Okay, it's fine. So, the impact of finances, okay? Parents' finances, okay? Will influence the reading, okay?
Yeah.
Not always. That's why at this level, when we are at university, we need to be critical thinkers. When we talk of critical thinkers, we don't just get told this is how things are and this is how things should be. We evaluate, we assess, we look at both sides of of anything. That's critical thinking. So when you are discussing in an essay, for example, I might give you an example of an exam essay that I could set. And that could be, what are the factors that affect reading? Discuss the factors that affect reading. Okay? That's one typical exam question I could set. Okay?
Yeah.
To what extent does the external factors, or to what extent do external factors affect reading in a child? You understand? I'm just giving examples of how the exam questions can be asked. Okay?
Yeah.
So as we're going along, bear in mind that this is how the exam question could be asked. Okay? And this is how I would be answering. It's an essay form, not in this manner. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm just giving bullet points. Okay? Okay. So, we say finances. Okay? Although we said not always. It depends now on the parents' attitude. So, attitude of parents. Okay?
Yeah.
Education of the parents themselves. Okay? Education level of parents. There's been a number of research, current research, that actually indicates and tells you that a parent's level of education will have an impact on the child's success, child's attainment success level. Okay? If a parent has got a degree or some form of education, some form of college qualification, whether it's a certificate in any trade, certificate, diploma, degree, master's, PhD, the child automatically, I think they said it's about 80%, 75% is likely to be educated.
Yeah.
Whether they're encouraged by the parents, whether they're not. Research is there, it indicates that. Okay? So the impact of the education level of the parent will affect whether the child themselves are motivated to go to school. Whether you have motivated them, whether it is intrinsic, which means it's within the child. Extrinsic, which means that it is outside of the child. That means that is the parent encouraging the child to read. That's attitude also. So when we talk of attitude, again, let me just go back to attitude. Okay, attitude has a factor. The parent's attitude towards reading will affect the child's reading. Okay? If a parent or if a child sees the parent reading a newspaper, reading a magazine, reading any book, any type of book, the child is likely to want to read, to love to read, have an interest in reading, to be motivated to want to read. Okay?
Yeah.
They're seeing the parent as a role model. Without even the parent saying, get out a book and read. Just by simply looking and seeing and observing their own parents reading, or their siblings, or their carer. Because we know that not all children are being raised by their parents. Some are being raised by grandmothers, uncles, aunts. Some are being raised by foster parents. Some are orphans. They're being raised in orphanages. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So the attitude, okay? When we say negative attitude, we talk about the child never sees the parent reading. When the child is reading, or the child shows an interest in reading, the parent has got a very negative attitude, is not interested, does not motivate them, probably asks them to go and do chores, asks them to go and clean their room, asks them to go and do gardening. Are you understanding? So there's not much motivation. They are not encouraging that particular child to read. So therefore, the child does not see the essence, the importance of reading. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what we mean by attitude. When it is positive attitude, the parent will encourage the child. Have you read? Where's your reading book? Are you reading anything in school? Any stories that you have done in school? What did the teacher say today? What did you do today? What did you do in English today? What did you do in maths today? Can you tell me what you did in geography today? Can you tell me what you did in social studies? Because that's storytelling. They're already talking about, in English today we did nouns. They're already told, it's storytelling of what they've done, because anything that is, when you're talking about the past, is already what? Storytelling. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
And even with reading, it's broken down into two, non-fiction and fiction, and we're going to look at that. But we understood that.
Yeah.
Yes, so the attitude of the parent, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. Finances, let's look at a balanced argument. So whenever you have an essay, I want you to write it in a balanced manner. What I mean by balanced manner is to have a neutral, objective way of looking at things. That is what is being termed as a scholar. If you're a scholar, you need to always be balanced. You always need to look and weigh both sides. You might have an inclination of leaning more to the positive or leaning more to the negative. But you still need to discuss the other point where you don't have a lot of points on. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
You weigh the scale. That is being academic. That is an academic scholar. Okay?
Yeah.
You weigh both sides and you give an opinion of where your sides, where you lean more on. Okay? And you understand? That's critical thinking. And that is the level that you're supposed to be at. Okay? And you should get at within an essay. And how do you weigh out? You're giving different opinions, different facts, people's different views on the matter, on the subject. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So finances is very clear. Okay. No money to buy books. The child is not going to read. The only time that the child is ever going to read or be exposed to a reading book is when they're in school. Okay? And then we're going to also look at school. Okay? We're still looking at factors that affect a child when they're at home. They haven't gone to school yet.
Yeah.
They haven't been at school. Because education starts from within the home. There is informal education and formal education. We are talking about informal education at home. It's part of an education. Even when you leave university here, we call it informal. Lifelong learning, they call it lifelong learning. You're always learning. You can learn from your neighbor. You can learn from someone on the streets. You can learn from discussing about anyone. You can learn from anyone, whether the person is poor or rich. they can teach you a few things. You don't always learn only from people who are intelligent. Okay? So you learn from everybody. Okay? Yeah. So with finances, we have said, okay, with finances, that's the assumption. Not a lot of money to buy books. They might not even have enough money to buy food on the table. So do you think they're going to have enough money to buy books? So there's going to be lack of books, no books bought. Okay? Understood. Okay. The level of education, we have touched on that. Okay? The attitude, we have looked at it. Okay. Then let's move on to the school environment. It's external, okay, to the child. Okay? The child is an individual. Whether they're passionate about reading, they're interested in reading, but if the parent has got an attitude towards reading, that child might be motivated intrinsically within themselves, or they might not. Now it depends on the individual. Okay?
Yeah.
But they might be motivated, but with no book, are they going to read? No. Because reading comes to be a good reader, you have to practice, you have to read more, you have to be reading, you have to be corrected by someone on your pronunciation, on your fluency, and how to read. So someone has to role model you. There has to be some modeling process that is actually happening for you to be able to read very well. You understand it? Yeah. So there's some motivation that needs to be there. Okay? Although some children are quite good at motivating themselves. There's been cases where the parents have been uneducated, never gone to school. I have got very personal examples of that. Parents, I'm talking about my in-law, my brother-in-law. His parents never gone to school, okay? But he's a doctor. They were brought in a village. His parents were chiefs, but they never sent the children. They were not sent to school. Okay, so you'd assume, okay, from a chief's family, the chief would have a lot of money to send his children to school, but he was not sent to school. Eventually, I think some missionaries came and then wanted to send him to school, so he was sent to school. Then war broke out in Zimbabwe, and then he was recruited to go and fight for the Zimbabwean War of Independence.
Yeah.
He went there to fight. He was very young, I think around 5-6 years old. And then when he did that, when he came back, he was very old, and he always tells me about it and says, so when he came back, he was so motivated to go back to school. But he was the oldest in that class, and everybody was laughing at him. With only one shirt torn, he'd come back, wash the clothes, wash it and stuff like that, and he would go back and go to school. He went to university, wanted to do engineering, and then someone just walked past him and said, why do you want to do engineering? Can you not be a doctor? Can you not become a doctor? I said, what is that? I don't know what a doctor is. So he went into medicine without even knowing what degree, what the courses were going to be.
Yeah.
Yes. But that was then after that, he was then helped with his brother who became a teacher and then helped him pay off his fees and stuff like that. Then he helped his own brothers and sisters, educated the ones who were behind him. The other ones who were clever, his older sisters, they didn't go to school because there was no money. You understand me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They were very interested in like my sister's father-in-law, he died, but used to really like him, very interested in education, very humble man, very principled. But very well, for me, I thought he was very well educated about life. Although he'd never been to school, I think he was well much better than some of the people who'd gone to school. He was very insightful in some of the things that he would say. Okay? So when we talk of education, it's not only about school. There are some people who are well exposed to life and they've got a better reasoning capability than just going to school. It's both. Okay? So what I'm simply saying that in this case, the environment He was coming from a chief's family, which we assume it will have what? High status. But that chief family could not afford someone to go to school. Similar experience with my own father, coming from a chief's family, but was sent to school with his sister, who was married to someone who was working. Are you understanding? I'm trying to show you the dynamics of it. Then sometimes you assume that if someone is a director, or if you assume that someone is a lawyer, they've got money. they've got a status. Or someone is a teacher and and someone who's a lawyer, the lawyer's got a higher status. But it's not always the case. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
But it is sometimes. You've understood?
Yeah.
So that's that, okay? The school itself, let's move on to the school, okay? When we talk of the school, okay, we are talking about library. Does the school have a library facility? Does the school have a place where the learners can go take out a book, go and read, okay? We are also talking about the classroom itself. Now the teacher. The teacher is another person who will have an impact on whether the children are going to read or not. Okay? We have understood. So, if there's a library, okay? If there is a library, there are books there, the learners are going to be interested in reading. Okay? They're going to go and take out a book, go and read. There's going to be time for them to read. Even if the school does not have enough books, they can still read there, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, leave the books there, go and read. But there is time being given for the child to read on their own, to choose a book that they love to read, that they might have interest in, that is at their level, okay? So they're being given that opportunity, okay, to a whole load of books. You've understood? The teacher, if the teacher brings in books and the teacher reads to the learners are going to retell these stories, okay? Oh, today my teacher read this particular story. This is the story that we read today. I didn't like it, I liked it, or something like that, okay? So if there's a lot of reading that is being done with the teacher, if there's a lot of reading that the teacher is doing in class, then the learners are going to what? Read. They're going to have a lot of stories to tell because the teachers told them stories. The learners themselves, if they're given an opportunity to tell each other stories, they're going to be able to narrate each other's stories. Are you understand? If the learners are given an opportunity to read stories outside of school, outside of class, in class, they're going to be able to build on more stories for themselves. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yes. You understand? If they see the teacher reading and reading properly, they're going to copy, mimic the way the teacher reads. That happens, children read. That's behaviorist theory. They will imitate how you read. I've had that done a lot of times. Even university students do it. They will copy the way the lecturer speaks. We used to do it, yes. Copy the way the lecturer speaks, the terms, the favorite terms the lecturer tends to repeat, the students will copy. Okay? You get motivated by some of your lectures, you get inspired by some of your lectures. I've had inspiration from lecturers, from teachers, right from primary school to high school to university to college. I have teachers and lecturers that have inspired me, and some of their methods I still use them up to today, even after 22 years, 18 years of getting the degree. You understand? Yes. So can you see that the teacher should be a very strong role model and inspirational role model. You need to demonstrate good reading practice. You need to demonstrate the process. You need to teach the process of how the reading is done. That is also what is lacking within the school settings. They are not teaching learners how to read the process, how to do it, how do we read, how should you read. When we say someone is a good reader, how do we demonstrate being a good reader? And you as a teacher should demonstrate it. The teachers then let the students demonstrate it as well. Okay?
Yeah.
Understood? So the teacher has to be a role model. There has to be books there. And we're going to then look at the challenges of reading, okay? The challenges that are found that might affect the factors there, okay?
Yeah.
Lack of books is one, okay? The facility. So here is facility, the setup of the buildings of the school, okay?
Yeah.
No library, no resource center, no material center, no materials, no computers. Then the child is not able to read maybe things on the internet, even know what an email is, because you read emails also, okay? You've understood.
Yeah.
You might not be able to even set up an email, not even know what an email is, or the internet is, or how to surf the internet. Then this is the teacher in the classroom. Okay? The teacher themselves should encourage reading. Okay? Lack of textbooks. Okay? So the teacher might be very interested. Very interested about reading, encouraging reading, really is a great support of reading. But there might be no books. So lack of books also. So not enough books, shortages of books will affect the child's what? Reading. They are not exposed to a lot of books for different types of books. Okay? Again with school. If the schools don't have money, finances, maybe it's not in a properly funded place, okay, area. So maybe it's very difficult to get books. The school does not even have money to buy the books. All they simply have money for is to get the school textbooks, okay, the prescribed textbook. Okay? I know in most schools I've taught in villages, I've taught in all types of school settings. So I know all of them. So some of them, the school will only be able to buy the one set textbook. So the whole year, the learners will only use one English textbook, one maths book for standard one. In some places they don't have at all. I've taught where they didn't have. I was the resource. I had to write the poem on the board. I had to read the book, the short stories. These are exam students. Get the books from other schools. Bring them in. One book. And that school had never, ever passed English. And I still remember even the Ministry of Education, the Department of Education in the province, when they had the highest scores, they actually came and asked, how did that happen? It's a black school in a village school. Yeah. How did you do it? yeah. I said I did it using my own resources. You should fund schools. So it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, but it can be done. Yes. So it's a motivation of the teacher themselves. So if the teacher's got negative attitude, okay, there are no books, the school cannot afford books. The teacher as well will have an impact on the reading level of the learners. They are not going to be able to read. But if the teacher is motivated and says, okay, despite the school not having enough finances, I am myself going to be the resource. I am going to get all newspapers outside. I am going to ask teachers, do you have anything that I can use to teach reading? The teacher will go out of the way to go and print out things and bring them in class. Okay? It can be done after it. You make your own resources. And I still remember even with my first year of teaching, I used my resources that I had built up at college. I used it for almost 2-3 years. Yes, the activities that I'd done while on my teacher practice or teacher placement, I just went and used them with the learners I had, because my first teaching school was in a village, very remote. I was actually shocked because I didn't grow up in a village, but yeah, that was my first teaching assignment in a village, but yeah. And then at the end of that, I was able to do a library. I was able to be a librarian.
Oh.
Yes. We were able to there were some books that had been donated by an NGO and they've been there, they were not using them and stuff like that. But we were able to set up a library, run a library, get older learners to help me with the library and stuff like that. So it is possible. Very possible. Okay? So that's the school environment. Okay? So if the school is not well resourced, no library, the facilities or the teacher themselves, then the learner is going to be affected with reading. Okay. More books, that means the learner will read. Okay. Although we know that even if there are books, the learner might not be interested. Those are now internal. It's to do with the student.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And then other factors, other external factors. Okay. We know that a child does not just grow up in a home environment or at school. They have the community. They have other media that affects them. So if there's a radio, they listen to the radio, the speaking is going to be better, storytelling is going to be better, they're listening to the news, they're watching the news, they're hearing the news. Okay? If there's a TV, they're going to be able to narrate events, and narrate things that have happened. Okay?
Yeah.
So here, if they go to church, they've got Bible, they've got Sunday school, they're going to Bible stories there. Okay? Or if they go to a mosque, they're going to have reference to the Quran. Okay? They teach you the religious teachings that are there. Okay? If they're from an African traditional family, maybe they might have witch doctors that come there. I don't know, or people telling them about different cultural things that happen. But someone narrating, did you hear about so-and-so's neighbor? Did you hear about uncle? So even if the parents are also talking to their children, this is what happened to me today. If the siblings are talking to them, telling them stories, it will also build their storytelling skills. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've understood. So the church itself, the media, okay, the neighbors, the community where they grow up can affect their reading. So there are communities where you go in, you're holding a book, or you are speaking in a certain manner, they will totally reject you. They're there. You're still walking with a book or reading a book, it would be very what? To be very weird for you to be seen with a book. Okay? But there are cultures where you go in a train, everybody's reading. Everybody on the train, on the bus has got a book. I found that very interesting. Okay? That it is normal. If you're not with a book or you've never read a book, there's something wrong with you. Some cultures are like that. Some communities encourage reading from the time that the child is born. There are some cultures, before the child sleeps, there's bedtime stories that are read to them. In other families, you pray first. You do a Bible story. Then you go and sleep. In other families, you just go and sleep.
Yeah.
Yes. Are you understanding? So culture also plays an important role in encouraging reading.
Yeah.
Yes, you've understood. Yeah. So when we talk of internal factors, we're not talking about the child himself. It's got nothing to do with whether the child has got parents or the home has got money or there's no library or the school. Okay, it really is about the child. We know that they're special needs children. Yeah. So they who are dyslexic, dyslexic is someone who's got problems with reading and writing. So that child born with a special needs condition is going to have difficulties in what? In the reading. Someone who has got maybe brain damage is going to have difficulties in what? Reading. They're going to be very slow in their reading. They're going to be 2 to 4 years behind only in their reading. Okay? Yeah. That's research. They're not going to be far behind more than 4 years. It's not possible. The research has been done, it's not. So they're going to be, if they're 5 years, they're going to be either their reading level is going to be of a 1-year-old. Or if they're 5 years old, their reading level is going to be of a 3-year-old. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
They don't go beyond more than 4 years behind. It does not matter what the condition is. As long as they've got some slight recognition of reading, okay? As long as their brain is operating, is functioning, okay? You've understood? So special needs, internal. Now we're looking at internal. Internal factors that affect reading. We said special needs. Conditions. Lack of interest or motivation within the learner themselves, within the child. The child might not have any issues. They don't have any, we don't want to call it slow development because that was shown. There is nothing wrong with them. They just don't like reading. And this is to do also with gender. Boys tend not to like reading. Biologically, now we've got biological makeup here. Okay? There's gender differences in reading. Okay? Girls, in terms of gender, are good communicators, good readers, can speak really well, can listen really well, can focus and have attention. Okay? Boys tend to develop these skills later. Some of them struggle with it. It's to do with the gender difference. So there's gender differences within reading, ability to read, and the space of reading. Research is there, the document is there. Okay. There are gender differences. And in primary school, the girls will tend to perform better. So you have girls attaining better marks in primary school. The difference only then ends up in when you go to Form 3, Form 4. That's when the real, I always like to say, that's when you can determine the intelligence of the child. Although some girls will always be intelligent, no matter, they just started off intelligent right from the day they were born.
Yeah.
Yes, but most of the girls' intelligence is measured at Form 3, Form 4. That's why I always laugh when parents are really like, yeah, my daughter is very intelligent, and I'm like saying to myself, wait until they're in Form 3, then you can talk. It's too early to say your daughter is intelligent for a girl, but for a boy, and it's not nice to say for my son is not intelligent. Wait until they're Form 3 for you to determine whether your son is intelligent or not. It's too early to say they're not. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I've had instances where some were not really good at school, but have gone and become accountants, lawyers, doctors. Because it's not only about the IQ level of the child, it's the motivation. Someone will be motivated and will say, I will be a doctor despite what everybody says. I don't have the intelligence for it. I will start as a nurse. Yes, and there are people who have started as nurses, changed nursing. My sister is an example, was a nurse. She moved at 39, decided to train as a lawyer. Has got a master's, set up her own law firm. From a nurse, and started studying law at 39 years. Now 10 years on. Does it make much difference? No. There are some people who went to law school when they were straight from university, they don't even have a law firm. She's achieved a lot more than other lawyers within that short space of time. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yes. So it's not about intelligence, okay? So internal factors, also intelligence is, does that child have the intellectual ability, okay? Okay? So intellectual ability, okay? Because we know reading is a process. It's a process that involves pronunciation, nouns, understanding the noun, not now. Nouns is the language, you also have to understand the grammar, the language, the semantics, the definitions and everything like that, okay?
Yeah.
But it's an internal ability to process. Reading is an internal ability. We don't see it. Yeah. We only show that, okay, now this person is able to read the cat. But you cannot go inside the child's brain to be able to teach them. You can teach them the skills. But at the end, it's the brain that has to process it, the brain has to remember. So the brain also, reading is complex because it also involves memory. Because for you to be able to read that word, you should be able to remember that word. You have to remember it in your brain. And for the brain to process it, for the brain to bring it out. Are you understanding? So there's a lot of memory retention also. You have to focus. You have So I think these are some of the factors. Biological also. Do you think if a child has got no arms, are they going to find it easy to read? To turn the pages? Because reading now is a process.
Yeah.
To take a book, you need your you need your hands.
Yeah.
To open the book, you need your fingers. To read the books, you need your eyes. So there are going to be some people with special needs. Braille, we need that's why we have then the Braille. That's when we have books that are going to stand on an e-book, or maybe e-book going to stand on a computer, maybe speech and text. So they're audio books. Okay?
Yeah.
There's the Braille for those who are blind. You understand? So they might have some biological, I don't want to call it dysfunction, but they might have some biological challenges, okay, that might prevent them from being able to. Okay? You've understood?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is factors.
Yeah.
So what did we say? We said when we look at the factors that affect reading, they are broken down into two major factors. External factors, internal factors. Internal factors have something to do with the individual child, with the individual person. It has nothing else to do with any outside force, any outside influence. Okay? So we said with internal factors, it's the child's intrinsic motivation. Okay, it's to do with the child themselves as an individual. Is the child motivated to read? Do they have the ability to read? Okay. Do they have the biological makeup to be able to read? Okay. Do they have any special needs condition? Are they dyslexic? Do they have emotional social problems? Are they ADHD? Are they autistic, where they have problems with words, cannot order words, they cannot communicate properly? What type of issues do they have? Okay? External factors have got nothing to do with the child. It is other factors that affect. The child is being affected with outside force, with outside factors to do with the home. The parents will determine whether the child is able to be a competent reader or not. The finances of the parents, the attitude of the parents. Okay?
Yeah.
Even the environment where the parents actually stay, okay, the level, the education of the parents, the qualifications of the parents, okay, and then it also extends to the carers. Who's looking after them? Are the maids, the carers that are looking after these children able to read? Are they able to help them with homework? Are they able to listen to them read? Then we move on to the school itself as an external factor, okay. When we look at the school itself, the facility itself, do they have libraries? Do they have enough textbooks? Is the teacher motivated? Does the teacher have the skills of how to teach good reading? A lot of researchers out there is saying that most teachers do not know how to teach reading. They've not been trained properly at training colleges. They've not been trained properly at universities on how to teach reading. So therefore, the learners are coming out as bad readers because of bad teachers that are bad readers themselves. And it's a fact. Yes. So, those are the factors. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's move on let's now look at reading itself.
I think it's your first time.
Okay. Let's look at formats of reading. Okay, types of reading, genres. Can you see this top? It's very broad. We are looking at it, how to teach reading. We are looking at factors that affect the child to read. Then we're looking at the book itself, the books, the different types of books that we have. Because reading includes reading books, right? It's information. Reading for information, reading for leisure. Now that's the purpose. What reasons for reading? Why do we read? What type of reading do we do? And what type of materials are there? Okay? Briefly, then I'm done. Okay? We've got two types of genres. Okay? Genre is just the type of story. Okay?
Yeah.
Reading. Okay? Types of story reading. So we've got, they're called genres. This is a bit off from the course outline because I realized that when I was lecturing this course last year as well, I realized that I had a group of students who didn't know what genre was, did not know what types of genres are in reading. And these are the basic information that you should know. Because you cannot teach reading if you don't know what types of reading books are there. Are you understand? Yes. So we've got non-fiction, okay? And then we've got fiction books, okay? Genres is types of books, okay? So reading involves books. What do we have in reading? We've got two types of books, okay? We have non-fiction, okay? Books that are related to a subject or information on a topic. So non-fiction, these are books, okay? What are they based on? On information, okay, on a subject or a matter, okay? On a topic, okay? Like for example, ECD, transport, okay? We've got different types of transport. Air, okay? We have land, okay? How many types of seasons do we have? We have winter, autumn, spring, summer. Some countries will just have summer and winter. It now depends which country you're located. Africa, it's summer and winter only. In other countries, there are 4 seasons, okay? Autumn, spring, summer, okay? And there's been a debate about cutting them into to only 3, I think, because they are saying that they overlap. This is, I'm making reference to the British seasons, okay? Yeah. Anything to do with geography, okay? Population, science, photosynthesis, plants, how plants grow, how the sun is, the planets, shelter, different types of shelter, okay? These are all to do with what? Non-fiction. So it's books that give you information. You can go and check them there, okay? Maybe a book about Malawi, maybe a book about Lilongwe, okay? How many cities does Malawi have? How many people are in Malawi? What is the flag of Malawi? Can you draw the flag of Malawi? How does it look like? It's information. You can go and check this information. It's accurate information that can be double-checked, that can be updated, okay? And these books are supposed to bring them in for children to read, irregardless of what age they are. They can't read, you have picture books, okay? Maybe different aeroplanes, different cars and stuff like that, okay? Different clothes, okay? Fiction, they are imaginary stories, okay? Imaginary stories, okay? Creative stories, okay? Creative stories. They're not real. They're made up characters, okay? Like for example, say Mary can fly. We know human beings don't fly. But I can write a story about Mary flying, okay? I can write about Mary flying, having wings, okay? They're imagined. I can write about John running as fast as a cheetah. But we know it's not possible, okay? I can write about a story about a monkey cooking. Can a monkey cook? No. Yes. So it's imaginary and creative, okay, stories that are not true, okay? They are not factual. They are not true, okay? So, not true, not factual, okay? With non-fiction, it's factual. It's evidence-based, okay? You can go and check it. It's reliable, okay? Very clear, yes. Now, what do we have? So, out of the fiction, we've got now different types of fiction, okay? We've got historical fiction. You need to bring these books and the children need to be exposed to them, okay? These are books that talk about the history of events, okay? Yeah. You can bring in a book that talks about the history of Malawi. You can bring in a history book that talks about maybe Dr. Kamuzu Banda. You can bring in a book that talks about an event, a past event that happened, okay? Or a future event, or a possible event. You can bring in a book that talks about COVID. COVID is now a past event, right? Yes, okay? Or a possible likelihood of an event that could have happened, okay? there are books about Barack Obama, there are books about Beyonce, there are books about, I think, the Queen Elizabeth, there are books about celebrities, famous people. Even those who are not famous might decide to write their own book about their own life. Or they get someone else to write about their life. Okay? So I can write about you. Or you can choose to write about yourself. Okay? Yes. Then we've got picture books. These are just pictures. Okay? Pictures, sometimes a few words. And all children, you should never bring in a book that has got no pictures. There should be some form of pictures for children. Okay? Not just writing only. Okay? So picture books, they're there. Okay? Then we've got folk tales, folklores, folk tales. Okay? These are stories that are passed from one generation to another. Okay, my grandmother, I used to love when we went to the village and my grandmother, in fact my cousins, I lived with my grandmother, they're the ones who would be telling us these stories. And these are the things that I would love. Like, okay, we're going on holiday with my dad and with my mom. Then they would sit and tell us these stories by the fire. So when they came to visit us, they would still tell us some more stories. And we'd be very attentive and we'd really listen. And even when they went back to the village, we would be telling each other these stories with my brothers and sisters. Okay? So these are stories that are passed from one generation to another. Okay? They don't have a known author. We don't know who started these stories. And they don't belong to anyone. Anyone can write them. Okay? So we've got adventure stories. Oh, science fiction. Science fiction stories to do with experiments and science subjects. Okay? Adventure, camping, anything to do with traveling and exploring and discovering things. This can be sometimes linked with science fiction. Science fiction is to do with experiments. Okay? Yeah. Yes. So experiments, maybe it's a group of young people that have gone hunting and decide to hunt for animals or observe what a lion eats, and then they observe how it eats, where it lives, and stuff like that. Okay? So it's more of to do with the sun, the earth, science-related subjects. Okay, what time is it now? Sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay, so that's the summary. So we've just looked at genres. We've said genres are broken down into non-fiction and fiction. We have said non-fiction are books that are based on a particular subject, a topic, so information on a particular subject, a topic. And then we've also said that fiction are just stories that are imaginary, creative, not true, very factual. And then we've said types of fiction. We've got historical fiction that looks at past events. We've got biographies and autobiographies that are written concerning someone else's life or written up by someone else on someone else's life. Picture books, there are books that have got pictures in them. Folk tales are stories that have been passed from one generation to another, oral, verbal. And then we'll say science fiction. Science fiction are stories that are related to science, experiments, would use science-related words like astronomy, planets, sun, earth, photosynthesis, those words. Okay? So just to sum up quickly, with this particular lecture on Unit 1, we have looked at what is reading. We said it's interactive, it is an engaging process, it is multifaceted, it is complex, it is a skill-related subject. It is derived from the English language subject. It is a literacy subject, which should be done in ECD, at ECD level. We then moved on and explained about the factors of reading. Okay? We did say the factors of reading are quite a number of them. We looked at how it is broken down. It is broken down into two, internal factors and external factors. Bearing in mind that we said internal factors are related with the individual specific child. External factors have nothing to do with the child. There are other factors like the home, the school, and other channels of media, like the culture, the community and all that. And then we then moved on to looking at, specifically when we say reading involves stories, and then we say there are two types of genres that are there. We've got non-fiction, we've got fiction, and we did give examples of fiction. We did say there's historical fiction, biographies, autobiographies, picture books, folk tales, and science fiction. And then with non-fiction, we did say that these are stories that are based on a particular subject that gives information. And they're real, they're factual based, and can be verified. That's the summary of today's lecture. Thank you.